All right. So the Docker is something, as I said, I'll repeat myself again, is a widely used concept. And when we talk about microservices or any API, it always makes sense to Dockerize it so that it runs similarly with the same strength and same configuration everywhere. Now, what this statement means, we will try to understand, and that's the reason I ask all of you to join from desktop. So even if one of you is joining from the desktop, it still is okay because I want to demonstrate something. I want to demonstrate that I'll create a Docker image on my machine, I'll publish it to the Docker Hub, and then someone else, maybe one of you, will then share your screen to download it from Docker Hub and run that API on your machine. So this is how whatever software I am developing will actually go and run on your machine without any further configuration. All you need is a Docker installation on your machine, and that's about it. Okay, and later on, all the APIs which we are going to have are going to be running on an Docker orchestrator. That is something which we'll do later, that how multiple Docker images or how multiple APIs which are wrapped inside Docker images or Docker containers are actually executed, or how we bring them those APIs up and running on a cluster, or also called as orchestrator. And the name of the orchestrator which we will going to learn or kind of understand is Kubernetes. But that is the actually the advanced concept. I'll not go to that detail at the moment. We will try to do this maybe in coming weeks, maybe 2-3 weeks from now, when we have an actual application working, because we need to create 3-4 APIs before we can start running them. For now, because this is a very, very basic session which we are having, we will only learn about how to Dockerize your application and how we publish it and how someone else can then make use of your image. Okay. Just to summarize, what we did last time is we learned the concept of Docker. And if you remember, the reason we learned is because we wanted some database called as Postgres database to be available on my system. So what I created was a simple Docker compose.yaml file, if you remember, and I added 2 containers here, one image here and one image here. And when I ran it using command docker compose up, these 2 containers were brought up, and then I was able to use this database as well as its console, UI console. So that is the reason I explained Docker last time, but today we will not be using Docker Compose. Docker Compose is a file where you can enter multiple containers, and then you can mention the dependencies between those containers, and then you can run the whole app together. Because when you have multiple images, multiple containers, multiple APIs, and you want to run all of them together, then you use Docker Compose file. Docker Compose file is primarily used for local development. It is usually run on your local machine. It is not something which runs on production. Okay, but this act as a sandbox of your APIs. Okay, so when you want to run multiple APIs together, multiple containers together, you use something called as Docker Compose. For now, this is not what we are looking into. We are actually looking into how we can actually convert our API, which is employee Spring Boot API, into a Docker image, and how we can run it on my machine as well as on my API on your machine, how we share it. So all that aspects is something which we will look at today. Okay, fine. Now what we do is, first of all, first thing first, let me give you a small URL from where you can actually go and learn Docker curriculum. Okay, so this is a very good website, a Docker curriculum. It's for beginners just like you. It is written by someone called as Prakhar Srivastav, and I find it really, really good. This is website, the first time I saw this was 5 years back, around that time, and it's up since then, and it's really, really very good. So if you want to learn everything about Docker, you just go here, because when you type in Google Docker, you will get hell lot of tutorials and you will get confused where to start from and all those things. My recommendation is you just go here. It will tell you exactly what it is, nothing more, nothing less. So what is a Docker? What are containers? What is images? Why you should use containers? Then how to, if you want to get started, how will you get started? What you need? How will you set it up? A simple hello world program. So all you have to do is to follow this tutorial, and it's not that huge. What you see is just anchors in the same page. It's only this much. So it's not huge. If you just, this is just, I would say, if you can spend 3-4 hours, you can do all that in 3-4 hours. So Docker is that easy. Of course, any software which you come across has its own intricacies. So you cannot learn everything about Docker in a single document. What it will teach you, whatever you really need to know to make yourself familiar with Docker concepts, as well as the basic commands and basic concepts. So this much is what you would need. All you would need to do is to sit for 3 to 4 hours continuously and read everything here. And not only read, try to do what it is asking you to do. So it has commands. It will say, okay, do this now, then try this, then try that, then all those things it will do, ask you to do. We will also do the same thing now, similar things, but here you will get to know some more commands. Okay, I'm sensing someone has not. Ashwin, you want to ask something? I can see you. You're unmute. Okay, fine. Okay, so this is so I gave you a background of Docker. If you don't, if you want to didn't really understood, you go back to the previous session class, and I tried drawing few things why you actually needed what Docker solves. So that is the agenda. That was agenda of last call. So today it's all about practical aspects of it, how you Dockerize your specific API. So let's get started with that. Okay. So first thing first, when you want to Dockerize something, you need a file called as Docker file. Docker file has to have this name. It doesn't mean it always has to have this name. You can name it anything, but otherwise, if you don't name it like this Docker file, then you have to provide, while you run any command against this file, you always have to provide the file name, saying -f file name. It's advisable if you have a single project, you keep one Docker file like this here. Okay, this Docker file looks like this. Okay, remember it doesn't have any extension. So in this case, Docker compose.yaml, you would see guys, give me a minute. Okay, 1 minute. Came up. Okay, fine. Yeah, sorry. So this looks like a YAML file because it has extension as .yaml, which is fine. It looks like YAML. It is YAML, but the Docker file is not YAML. The Docker file is a simple file which has no extension, and it looks like this. Okay, and the instructions are quite static in the sense, not like a real programming language or something. Okay, these are just plain instructions step by step. Okay, what you get at the first is always the command. So it also follows the same thing. Imagine these as a function calls or method calls. The first word is always the command, and then comes the arguments. And then it can have multiple arguments like this. So this argument, and then this is a second argument. It's spaced. You can put a space there. So copy command has an argument. This is the first command. This is the second command. Sorry, this is the first. This is the command name. This is the argument. This is the second argument. Something like what you can see, you have witnessed in methods, Java methods. Okay, so here it's very simple Docker file. Docker file can be written in where you can configure more things, but I've kept it simple for you for the better understanding. And this is also something what we need. We don't need anything else apart from these 4 lines at the moment. Now what these 4 lines are saying, first line, from OpenJDK 18 JDK Alpine 3.15, right? What this means is what kind of machine I need, right? So if you remember the concept of Docker, I'll again summarize that the concept of Docker is that when you want to distribute your application to someone else, previously you were giving him or that person your application. Where is your application? Your application is here. This is your application. So when you say Maven clean install, it generates this jar. Inside this jar is your API. right? When I want to give this to Ashwini or someone else, I would have to give her this jar. I'll say, Ashwini, have this jar, employee Spring Boot API. I'm getting a chat message. Let me see what is. Yes, ma'am. I don't know what this means, but okay. Okay, so if you get but once you have this jar here, the way it's to be distributed is I will somehow try to give it to you, and then you will have this jar on your machine and you will try to run it. The problem with this approach is that I am only passing you my application, but I am not passing you the other surrounding configuration around it, which is actually my machine. So my machine can have some specific configuration which is not coming along with what I'm giving you. So this API may or may not work on your machine. Okay, that was the problem one. This is the syndrome called as works on my machine. So developer says it works on my machine, but somehow it's not working on it on your machine, and that person or developer doesn't know why, because the primary reason could be the place that API is running on someone else's machine can have different configuration, and because of that it may not work. And the solution to this is Docker. So what Docker says, you wrap your application around an image, and that image will also have an operating system of its own with all the respective softwares to run that application. To run this application, what I need? To run this application, I need two things. One is the operating system, right? Any application will run on an operating system. And another thing I need is to run this application is JDK, right? A JDK setting which will run my Java code, or rather it should be supposed to be JRE, not even a JDK. All I need is a JRE so that my application runs there. Those two things I need. So what I am doing now after I have started using Docker is I am not only giving you application, I am also giving you an application and an operating system and a JRE or JDK, and that is what it is. So I'm saying I want to use a base image of OpenJDK and with Alpine. Alpine is the name of a distribution of Linux. Okay, it's a operating system. Understand, this is an operating system. Fine. So I'm saying I want to use this machine. When I say this, understand this as a machine. It's a machine and all together. Okay, I'm saying this machine, and then inside this machine, next step is copy my API, which is target, which is present inside target employee Spring Boot API. This dot jar. This is my application. Copy this and rename this to app.jar. So all I'm saying is copy this from here, paste it inside the machine, and then rename it to app.jar. I could give anything, by the way, here. I can give any name, but I'm saying app.jar to simplify it. Okay, then I'm saying expose the port 9000. Why I'm saying this? Because my application listens to 9000, right? So I am also mentioning it here. However, this is not a mandatory step. Then I'm saying entry point. Entry point means when my image is triggered. So again, to summarize, again to reiterate what we discussed last time, when you build it, it becomes an image. When you try to run this, it becomes a container. So that's the difference between image and a container. Okay, image is a static thing, it doesn't run. When you kind of try to run it, it becomes a container, and that container is your application which you can interact with. Okay, so now this is your entry point. I am trying to say when this image, where this image has what now? After this step, this image has three things. It has operating system, it has JDK, it has my application as well. Now I'm saying when you run this with this command. The moment you trigger your image, it will create a container, and the container, while the image try to convert itself into a container, it will run this application app.jar, which is this one. So it says run with this command java-jar app.jar. And this is also how you can run this jar on a local. If you want to run your Spring Boot application locally, this is also what you can do. You simply say java-jar and name of the jar, it will run your application. The same thing I'm doing inside the machine while the image is converted into a container once the command is given. So this is what your Docker file looks like, plain and simple. Fine. Next thing what you do is, once you add a Docker file, there has to be some system configuration, otherwise you will not be able to build it. What is the system setting you need? You first need to install Docker Desktop. So this is the Docker Desktop. I asked you guys to install this in the previous session as well as today before the call. I mentioned this in the group that you need Docker Desktop. This is the Docker Desktop. This is the latest version of Docker Desktop 4.15, and it has few things: container, images, volumes, and this requires some good configuration on your system. Okay. If your system is really very low configuration, this may hang a lot, perhaps may not work as expected, but still try to do it. Otherwise, there are also some other alternatives where for low configuration systems, if you don't want to use Docker Desktop because let's say it's not working on your machine because of low configuration settings, then I will suggest some other Docker daemon as well for you to use. But try this first, okay? And once you do that, you also have to make sure that you increase the size of your Docker Desktop. So how you'll do that is, you go to settings here, you go to resources, and my system is high configuration, so I have like 6 CPUs. So I have given this much CPU here, then I am giving this much memory, but I'm not sure how much you have, but try giving at least 2 GBs or try giving at least 2 CPUs. If you have, I think most of the systems usually have dual core at least, so maybe try giving 1 CPU or whatever you can spare. So the more you give it, the better it would work, but don't give like to the extreme, otherwise your system will again become slow. Okay, fine. And try to make it work. Once it is up and running, it will look like this basically. So it will have, maybe for you it will have no images, and no containers. I have tried many containers, so I am seeing few things here, but you won't see, which is absolutely fine. Once you have this set up, next thing you need to do is to go to your Docker Hub and go to Docker Hub, and in the Docker Hub you need to sign up. I am already logged in, so you need to sign up first. Once you have signed up, registered, you will get username, passwords, fine. And then you can go and create your repository, something like this. So you can create a repository, or you can create an organization. By default, your username will have the default namespace. If you don't want to create any organization or repository, it's still fine. Or whatever you have, it will go inside your specific namespace. Maybe my username is this, that's why my namespace is coming as this. Whatever your username you will choose, you may get something like that there. And you can create multiple organizations also. Organization is nothing but a namespace. Understand, this is a namespace. What is a namespace? We'll come to that in a while. Right now, this is a namespace, and I have these containers here. If you see, these are my containers, not containers, sorry, these are images. Okay, and images have a specific template, a specific way of representation. So if I click on this one, see how it is written. This is the name of the namespace. This is the name of the image, and then you have this small colon, and then you have a tag name. A tag name is, understand this as a version. So when you publish the image, you make a change, you create the image, and you put version 1. Then you again make some change in the API, then you publish it again, you will say version 2, something like that. So version can change. Okay, so for example, I have first published 00.1, then 00.2, and 00.3. These are 3 versions I published for this specific API. In all these 3 APIs, there are different code present here, different functionalities, perhaps additions, enhancements. Okay, fine. Once you do that, then you also have to do one more specific thing to get a password. Now Docker Hub will have a password. Of course, when you log in from the UI, you will have a username and you will have a password. But when you want to access Docker Hub via command line using Docker login, you will need to generate a token. It's called as Docker Hub token. The way to do that is, you go here and you click on account settings, then you click on security, and from here you can create your access tokens. Where to use them, I will show you in a while. Okay, I'm not creating any new at the moment, but I'll show you in a while. Once you have done all that, so basically you need to do Docker Hub, create an account, create a namespace, then you install Docker Desktop. All that is done. Once Docker Desktop is installed, then you have to come to your project again. Now in your project, you already have a Docker file. Okay, you go and you open your command line here. And first thing first of all, you need, if you see this command, if you see this, for example, let me simply say maven clean. Maven clean, what it does, it deletes the target folder. So I want to delete the target folder first. So I'll say maven clean, target folder deleted. Fine. Now I need to run a command to build it, to build my application. To build the application, I need to put something like this. I'll have to say docker build. Okay, and then I have to say -t. This means a tag, what tag I want to give. Okay, so I want to tag this image, I want to give this image a name. So I will say 333.743 employee service -api. I'll say version 1. Okay, and then I'll give a space, and please pay attention. When after space, I have to give a dot. This is not a full stop. A dot means that I want to send what context I want to send to this Docker daemon. Okay, these words can be confusing if you don't really know what Docker daemon is and all those things. But dot, all I'm trying to say is, when you try to build this image, use the whole folder and look into it, what you need to find and what you need to copy. Okay, again, if it is a bit confusing, don't worry about it, just remember the command. You need to say docker, you need to say build, you need to say -t. -t means tag, what tag you want to, the name of tag simply means the name of your image, and then you simply say, give a space and say dot. The moment you do that, let's see what happens. So when I see do this, it will do something blah blah blah, and then it'll start executing these lines. So here it's saying I'm running 1 of 2 and I'm pulling this image. Fine. For me, it's already downloaded, so it is not saying anything. In your case, it will say, it will list a lot of statements saying it downloading, something like that. And then second line, it's trying to execute of copy. It is saying trying to copy this, but couldn't copy this because failed to compute cache key this file not found. Why it's not found? Because I'm trying to find this inside a target folder and I want to say snapshot.jar, which is not there, right? So the first step before you run a Docker command is to run a maven command. So now I will run maven clean install. What this line will do, this line will build the software, build the API, but before it does, it also run the unit test. If you remember, I had the unit test written here. These are my unit tests for post, put, delete, and all. I kept the unit test. It has ran it, and now in the target folder, it is showing me my API, the jar file. Okay. Now what I do is I will again then run this command docker build -t 333.743 employee service API, and now again this will try to do what? This will try to run these commands again. Okay, so I will say run, and this time it has done it. So it is saying, see what it is saying, I am naming your API as, or API image as, docker io 333.743 employee service API version v1. What is docker io? Docker io means it's the name of the registry, Docker Hub, Docker registry. So in my case, the Docker registry is Docker Hub. Okay, understand Docker Hub as a GitHub. In GitHub, you keep source code, right? That's where you keep your source code. Docker Hub is again a repository system for images. That's the only difference. In GitHub, you put source code. In Docker Hub, you put images. And that is what it has done. It's saying docker io 333.743, name of the namespace, employee service API version 1. Right now, if I go to my repositories, here I have some 4 APIs under this namespace, but I don't have employee service API. My demonstration After it's done, you will see employee service API here. You will see that here. And then from here, you can download it and run it. So my code will go in your machine and will run exactly as if it is running on my machine. And Docker facilitated that. Okay, let's move one step ahead then now. So what we do now is my Docker image is created. But how would I know if my Docker image is created? I will have to run a command to see it. So I'll say Docker images. The moment I do Docker images, it shows me all the images I have created. So many images, right? But I don't want to search it like this, right? So what I do is I will simply say grep. Grep is simple command line. It's a command basically which can filter your results and show only what you're searching for. So I'll say employee or something like that. It's not showing me employee service is created. The tag is version 1. Okay, it was published 2 minutes ago. This is its ID. So all images will always have the image ID. This is the tag repository tag image ID created size. So it's saying it's 375 MB. It is 2 minutes ago was published. This is the image ID. This is the tag, and this is the name of the API. Fine. What next? Next is, okay, I have also listed the steps here for your easy understanding. So I'm doing what now? Steps to take. Add Docker file, done. Add Docker ignore file. By the way, I missed this part. Docker ignore file is nothing so when I try to build a Docker file, and what Docker do is it try to take all the folders in all the files and folder in the root repository where I have Docker file. So I'm saying don't pick these files, idea file or maven file. I should have also mentioned .maven here. Don't add these YAML files, all those files, sonar lint, sonar file. Those pick these files. Otherwise, it will take more time, or maybe my image could be bulky. So that is the use of this. So I'll go back again to README. So you do a Docker file, add Docker file, done. Add Docker ignore file, done. Run maven command, done. Run maven command. I'll also write it here. Maven clean install. Okay, and after that I was supposed to do Docker login, but Docker login can also be done later. I ended up doing Docker build first, but I would now do a Docker login. Okay, just to show you what Docker login is. So this you can do. This usually is a one-time activity, but because I don't have to do it again and again, I already have it. But I will again try to demonstrate you this part. Okay, so I have to do Docker login. What a Docker login is? Docker login means my Docker command line. When I'm using these Docker commands, I need to eventually publish it, right? I need to, whatever Docker image I have here, right? This one, I need to push it here. Before I push it anything to this online server, I need to authenticate with it. So that's the reason I need to do a Docker login, right? How to do that? It's quite simple. I'll say Docker login. That's it. Once I do that, it will say authenticating with existing credentials. Okay. In your case, it will not say that. It will say enter username. When it will say enter username, okay, I think I may have done somewhere so that I could show you. Let's see. No, fine. Okay, then it will ask for the Docker username. So you enter Docker username. Then it say enter password. So when it asks for the password, you need to enter the personal access token. But before you need to generate it. So you go here. This is what step I was telling you earlier. You go to account settings and you go to security and you click on new access token. And then you give whatever name you want to give it. So temp123, whatever, and I click on generate, and this will generate this, something like this. This is displayed only once. So you have to copy and paste it somewhere. It's saying the access token will only be displayed once. So store it somewhere. So I will just copy this, and it also says how to use it. So it'll say run docker login -u means username. So I will just show that. You do this and it will ask for the password. And then here I will say password as this. By the way, when you try to enter password or copy paste password, it is entered but it doesn't show. So don't worry why it's not coming. It won't show that you have entered it, but it takes it. So it's saying login succeeded. So that is how you will go and log in using the Docker login command. Fine. I'll go back. So Docker login done. Docker build we have done. After Docker build we have run Docker images. Fine. Docker images we ran, right? We ran this and I show that my Docker images is present here. By the way, if you do not like the command line, you can also check all those things from the Docker desktop also. So once you ran Docker images, once you ran Docker build, you could actually come here in the images and you can search your image here as well. I hope you should see it like this here. You see, so I have it. Okay, it's the same thing which I was seeing here is also coming directly here. Okay, next is to run your Docker image. Okay, so if you remember, I again reiterate, you have, when you say Docker build, it creates a Docker image, but Docker image is a static thing. It's just a file. It doesn't run. You try to double click on it, it won't run. It's not runnable file. But when you want to create a container out of an image, then you run this command Docker run. So here I'm saying Docker run. I'm saying what port I want to run this. So this is the host port. This is the container port. So I'm saying whatever traffic will go to 8088 on my local host should go to 9000, because 9000 is a port number which I am using inside the container. And then here I am putting the name of the image. Fine. What is the name of my image here? It is this, and then colon, and then version 1. So I should say version 1, right? And now I will try to run this on whatever port you want to run it. So on localhost, you can run on this also. Fine. So I'll say 8099, but this should be this because my API runs on 9000, right? If you remember, my application file is, so if I go and show you here, this is my application.yaml file. It runs on 9000. So that's where it's coming from. I'll go back. Okay, so now I want to run it. So I will simply say this. Okay, and you can see the changes here. If I go to containers right now, nothing is running here, right? Nothing is running. When I say this, it will run my Spring Boot application. Understand, this is not running from here. Okay, this is not running from here. This is running from the image. So container is being created. You see, this is the container it is creating. 15 seconds ago, it created this container. Created from what image? This one. Okay, and it is saying 8099 is active. So I click on this and it shows me this page. And here, if I say Swagger UI.html, this is my API which works. So this is coming from the container. So far what we are used to see is that we always click on here and it runs and it shows you all those things, but right now this API is running from a container. Okay, and it will have the same feature. So if I go and do a get here, I won't get anything, but there's nothing. Then I say init database, and then I initialize few values and I do execute again, and I see the results coming here. So my API is functional from a container. Okay, now once you are done with this part, then comes the next part, Docker push. Why I am doing Docker push? I'm doing this because I am done with my API development. I have done with my API development and then I have tried running it on my local. I created the image, then I ran it locally to see whether it works. And now I want what? I want this API to be made available to you. You are another developer, or you can be an operations person, or you can be a person who runs the application on the production server, and you require this application from me, right? And my job is to give you a working API. So the way I have found, the way we both have agreed on is that I will write my API in whatever language I want to write in, and then I want to wrap it around the image, and that image is what I would give you so that you can run it on your machine. That's the whole and sole idea of why we are using Docker. Okay. We could very well give a jar also, but jar will come with the other problems, configuration related problems. That is, works on my machine, doesn't work on your machine. But Docker is very safe. I build it, I test it, I publish it to a central repository. From that central Git Docker Hub registry or repository, you can download it and you can then run it on your machine, on your own local machine, or on a production server, wherever you want to run it. So it will exactly run the same way as if it's running here on my machine. So the last step which is remaining is Docker push, and that is what I'm going to be doing. So I will go here and I will kind of stop this. Docker stopped, and then I will simply say this Docker push 333743 employee service API, and I will say version 1. And now it will start pushing it to Docker IO 333743 employee service API. So if I go back here and I go to repositories, here right now I have nothing. It is still in the process of publishing. Now it is saying it has published. If I go and refresh this here, I can see my image coming here, and it will follow the same thing. So if I say 7743 employee service API, I have version 1 tag. Okay. Next, let's say I make other change. So I go here, I'll say, okay, I want to add one more endpoint. For example, I come here and I go to controller and I say I have one more endpoint. Okay, maybe I'll just copy this. I'll say I have one more endpoint like this, just another endpoint, and I'll say just another endpoint. Okay, and here let's say I'm simply returning a string, and I'm saying hello. Okay, so I've just added one enhancement. Let's say I've added a new endpoint of some sort. So now this will have I will have to go and create a new image out of it, right? Because it's a new version. So what I'm trying to tell you is what the significance of these tags, version 1, version 2. So now I would repeat the whole process. So I'll go here again. I will say maven clean install, because I have to first build it. I'll say maven clean install. It will do all the things, run the test, this and that. And this will go and create a new jar file for me here. Okay, then I don't need to do Docker login because I've already done it. So I will say Docker build -tag 333743. This is my Docker Hub namespace. Then I'll say employee service API version 2, because this time it's version 2 because I made a change. I want to version it. So I'm saying Docker build -t 333743 employee service API. This has, remember, this has to be the same name of the repository, employee service API version 2 dot enter. This will create a new version. Then I can search it using like this. So I'll say Docker images grep employee. It is now saying I have two images. This was published earlier, this is published just now. It is tag as version 2. Fine. Next I would do is I will say Docker run. So I will try to run this first to see whether it works okay on my machine before I push it back. So I say Docker run, and I will have to say -port 80 whatever port I want, let's say 23, and then I say 9000, which is the port mapping of inside the container. Then I put the name. So I'll say 333743 employee service API version 2. So and now this time I'm running version 2. Okay, if I go here, I can see the container being created on 2023, correct? And this will have my new endpoint. This will have a new endpoint. Let's see if that is working fine. Swagger UI.html. Yes, I have another endpoint which I just added in version 2, just another endpoint. Try it out, execute. It's saying hello. Fine, this is working. And now I will go and publish this. Okay, so I will go here. I will stop this process of running. I can stop it from here also, stop and delete or whatever, but I have stopped it from here. And then I will run the command docker push, then name 333743 employee service API, and this time version 2 is what I'm pushing. Okay, so I'll do this, and when you go here, right now it's only version 1 at the moment, but see after this you will see version 2 is going to be installed, pushed here. Version 2. Okay, so this is how you interact with Docker. This is how you Dockerize it. This is how you log in. You see images, you see containers, you run it locally, then you push it and it comes here. The next part is how you can actually go and make use of this API. To demonstrate this, I cannot do it because I am the one who is the developer of this at the moment, and I want someone else among you to volunteer and share your screen and try to just run Docker pull, and I will explain you how to do that. Is there anyone in the call who is who can share their screen, or do you guys have Docker already installed? Ashwini, did you try doing this?
Just I installed it.
Okay, can you share your screen maybe just to demonstrate this part, so that um, uh, demonstrate that whatever I have done here, you can pull it and then run the same API which I have just developed on your machine. That is the goal basically. Can you share your screen?
Fine. Please. Just wait, sir.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so what I would show now is because if you are not able to do this on your local machine because of whatever issues you are getting, for example, Ashwini, you are getting this virtualization error, or maybe your system configuration is so low that Docker desktop will just not run. Okay, this can also be a possibility. So Ashwini, if you let's say solve your virtualization problem, even then there can be a possibility that it may not run because of your low system configuration. Fine. So if that is the case and you want to run any Docker image from internet or from Docker Hub, there's a step to do it. There's an online Docker playground which you can try. So I will show you that. So you go here and you will say Docker playground. Then you click on play with Docker. This is coming from Docker itself. And no, not here. Sorry, I think it was this link. Yeah, this one, labs.playwithdocker.com. Okay, you click on start, you come here, then you say add new instance. It creates a new instance. Then here you run the command. So the command which you need, and this is also something which you would need to do if you were doing this on your local machine. You need to pull the image, then you need to run it. By the way, if you can directly run command docker run, it will also pull it, but I'm just breaking this so that I can tell you explain you the command. So you go here, you can click on version 2, and here uh, can I show you the command directly from here? You see Docker version 2, you run docker pull this, you copy this and you paste it here. As simple as that. Docker pull and the name of the image. This will pull the image first, it will download it, and then you say docker run and you say -port 8080 and you say 9000, because this is, and this is something I'm doing a mapping. -p means port, so I want to say whatever traffic comes on 8080 route it to 9090 inside the container. This is the host where you're running your image, and this is the port inside the container which is listening to any HTTP request. Here then I will say 333 743 employee service API version 2 run. Command not found. Okay, fine. I have missed the docker. So now the application is running, and then I will have to open port. Okay, so I will click on open port. What? Open port 8080, right? So I'll say open port 8080. Okay, this will open my API, and here I will say swagger UI.html. This will show me my API. So my API, which I was developing locally, is actually not, imagine it is not deployed on this server, which is Docker Playground. And this is the latest version. So I just can see just another endpoint, try it out, execute, hello. So my API is now working. This same behavior will happen in your machine as well once you do it. Okay, so I will try to Docker Playground, and I will put this link in the README for you guys to try it out. So you guys try this. Or here. Okay. Fine. Any questions so far? Because this is the agenda I wanted to cover today. I don't have any further agenda. This is a very important concept, and I want all of you to go through it. Try it out. Without you trying this, you will just not get it. Okay, so you have to really try this on your machines and try to fix your machines. And I will again say this: if you want to become a developer, you need to have a good system, a good machine. Otherwise, there's no point of doing all this, right? So if your machine is not high configuration or not basic configuration, at least 4 GB RAM, and it's very slow, try changing your machine. Otherwise, you will not be able to use all these tools, which are also very, very important. Okay, so I'll take a pause, and if you have any question, please ask.